right, well, we will call the meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Or I pledge allegiance.
Roll call, please.
Kristen Kimbenzi,
Here.
Glenn Sarka,
Here.
James Hewitt,
Here.
Jennifer Cliff,
Here.
Jennifer Ray,
Here.
Cheryl Maddox Smith,
Here.
Jason Zadunik,
Here.
Okay, would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a vote.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Sarka, support by Mrs. Klipp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Cam Benzie, Board of Education. The first item on the list, PA system. During our committee of the whole meeting on the 4th, you heard from me on a variety of projects, including the PA system and the science project, part of a presentation on safety infrastructure programming. The PA system, there was one bidder. If you look at the bid recommendation from Travis Hongisto, who's planning on being here, I'm guessing soon. The bid recommendation for the PA system was to JP Electric for $370,850, along with an additional 7% contingency for unexpecteds. JP Electric was the only bidder. And then also on the agenda, 5B, for the science project, we had 3 bidders for that project. Cross Construction, Klausner Construction, Primo Construction, and the bid recommendation went to Klausner Construction for a total of $1,279,350, along with a 7% contingency, which is $89,500. I'll let Mr. Hongisto explain some of the alternative casework, which when you look at the comparison for the different contractors, the bid tabulation sheet on the second page, that alternative casework brought Klausner down below the other 2 bidders. So, both projects higher than originally budgeted for, but that seems to be the norm. For the PA project, we did originally look at just Superior Hills and Cherry Creek and then added the alternative school since it was realized that they did not have a PA system. For the science project, again, just the cost of materials, cost of labor right now, certainly increasing from what we had originally expected. Fortunately for the PA systems, we do have a grant that will cover the cost of the PA system, so that will not be a burden to the general fund. At this point, I'm hoping that Mr. Hongisto shows up because he's really the expert, but I'll do my best to answer your questions if you have any.
The grant is gonna cover the full cost, or tentatively?
Yeah, Jim's gonna speak a little bit more to grants here shortly, but yes, that cost is covered entirely by a grant, Section 97 grant that we received. We also have a 31 AA grant that addresses safety, so there's a little bit of a shell game that occurs every year depending on when projects are completed and whether they fall into a 1 year or the next as far as the budget cycle, but between those 2 grants, we'll be able to cover the PA system entirely.
Are those from the state of Michigan?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, I have a question on the science labs. The total that we're looking at here, does that include that 7% contingency?
Mr. Hongisto, if you want.
Yeah, sorry.
I hope you're not too short-winded after bolting, but if you want to go right up to the podium, we're actually right in the thick of it now. So the current question is for, can you say your question again, Ms. Maddox-Smith, for Mr. Hongisto?
My question is the 7% contingency in the total amount that's projected? And I also have a question about the existing seating and chairs. Do we have any idea how much more that's going to cost, if we can use any of the existing that we have, if we need to buy new?
We had, that when we had met with the staff and teachers, there's some potential to reuse some of the existing chairs, but it is one of those things that depending on how we want to do it, it's one of those where you have a brand new space, so it's kind of one of those things where it'll be kind of a judgment call. If there's something that's 30 years old, I wouldn't recommend it, but if there's something that's not, if it's in good shape and it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, I think using the existing furniture is a likely an option from a cost standpoint. For the 7%, are you talking about the within the 1,279,350?
Right.
That is not. The 1,279,350 is the contract amount. We don't write the 7% into their contract. That's just for anything that comes up outside of it.
So that's the contingency, the just in case amount, so that's not in that total.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
And generally, like, we're more in the 3 to 4% range. There's a lot of time, like, no matter what projects come up, there's always something that you're going to come across along the way. But that's the 7% is kind of more conservative that we recommend to at least kind of earmark for that. I apologize. I'm not usually so up high on the agenda. I like it.
Yeah, you're the main show today, Travis. Since you're up there, if you could just speak in general terms to the cost, like inflationary costs,
Sure.
supplies, labor. I alluded to it just because these are a little higher than we expected.
Yep, no worries. Yeah, I think as has kind of continued to happen for some reason over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been expecting some sort of plateau at some point. The numbers that we had, I think we had like a budget number of about 880 for the estimated cost initially, and those were from similar projects that we've done just within the last year and a half, 2 years. So those are recent numbers. And again, I think it's one of those that continue to be surprised where the numbers keep coming in at. So it's there's not much of anything where the costs are going down. So unfortunately, at least not yet.
Could you just kind of speak to, and you read through this, you know, it will refer to science labs. What does it look like? You know, how many labs are we talking about? What's the size, the scope of the project is physically?
Sure. So basically, the four classrooms plus the 2 prep rooms, storage rooms, kind of in between. There's kind of a shared prep room between a couple of the labs over on that side. That whole stretch of the science lab wing is being redone. It's
Okay.
a full gut and redo. The classrooms on the opposite side of the hallway are not.
Okay.
It's basically just the lab side. So there's 4 full classrooms. I think the first one right now is being used for like physics and a math classroom. But there's all 4 of those rooms along that side are being redone, and those were all kind of planned and kind of gone back and forth between the needs from the staff and teachers as far as the layout of those spaces, sink sizes, all the casework details and that sort of thing. There's additional science, the fume hoods and everything in there to really set up for an ideal scenario now, not just remove and replace exactly what's there. So it's bringing up to current standards, ADA standards. There's barrier-free height lab stations and that sort of thing.
So in that common prop space, is there refrigeration in there at all?
No refrigeration. There's like acid and
Okay.
chemical storage cabinets and that.
And
sort
that's
of
all of the
Yep.
bells and whistles are included in that estimate?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
So you were saying that the original,
Thought it was on. Okay, there we go, sorry. You were saying that the original was 880 is what you were guesstimating?
Initial
Like,
budget estimate.
Initial,
and
and
I
that
think
you've
that was
done
from
other projects similar size?
downstate. Yeah, there's a couple downstate projects. I think the one most recently, actually Newberry had just done theirs recently, but Breckenridge Schools downstate had similar projects. Where
And
we
similar size, because this is a 50% increase,
those
it's
are,
not,
those bid numbers from theirs are 2 years old now, though.
oh, 2 years,
Yes,
okay, I thought
yeah.
you said those were recent, okay.
Construction wrapped up recently, but the hard bid dates were prior.
Even in 2 years, it's gone up that much.
I've seen worse.
I know,
Unfortunately.
okay, that's incredible.
50%.
It's like more like 20%, 25%. So.
That it's 2,000,003?
The 1,279,000 includes redoing the windows on that stretch.
Oh, okay, so there's additional
Yes,
stuff, okay,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, my recommendation, because that
A little freaked out
project,
there for a second.
being that we're, like all the
Yeah.
casework along the exterior walls, wanted to at least get a number to see what it would be to replace those windows. Because that actually goes, the windows go from grade all the way up to the roof. So that those classrooms on the second floor would also get new windows. Because it's all a single unit from floor to ceiling, or from ground to roof, basically.
And when we're talking about seating and chairs, I mean, do we want to have an all-included price here? Do we know how many chairs would be replaced?
I would not recommend having a contractor charge a markup on seating.
No, I think we can do that
Right.
internally, but I mean, is that kind of needed to be part of the entire price? I mean, if you're talking 40 chairs, that's not a big deal, but if you're talking,
We had that conversation, and it didn't seem to be a high priority for the people we spoke with.
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just one question regarding the 7%. You had mentioned 3 to 4. We've certainly seen very commonly 10% kind of used as well in the light of the environment now where costs are so much higher. 7% still, even though you said it's conservative, is it appropriate? Should we look at something higher?
No, I think sticking with that, because anytime when we're kind of running through and doing the construction admin, if we get numbers that we see back, we'll go back and forth with the contractors and either, what do we want to say, call them out and whatnot. If something seems off base, we're not just going to rubber stamp it and say, all right, here's, never mind, it's 10% or whatnot. Ideally, like I said, ideally, if we've got in the 2, 3, 4% range at the end of a project, that's more where we'd like to be at, barring any messes that we come up with. But as far as kind of uncovering, once you start ripping out walls or floors or whatnot, but even like the flooring abatement and those parts and pieces with that which is a common one that you come across, that's all included, the abatement contractors in these numbers, so.
And time frame for this?
Yep.
Will it be done in the summer, is my assumption?
Yes, and partially. So the way that we scheduled it out for the contractors from a bidding purposes is knowing that we have to have school open up with at least one lab online. So and with cost changes, we've seen many times where we'll get word that, all right, it's on its way, it's gonna be here June 30th, and it doesn't show up. They'll let you know the day before that, never mind, it's August 30th. So we've got it's phased in the bidding where they're gonna be able to, as soon as school lets out, contractors can go in and start ripping up phase 1 to set up get going on the first 2 rooms, basically, one of the new labs in the adjacent classroom and the prep room. So, and they can't start on the other half until they have the lab casework in hand. Once it's on site, then, and we actually feel comfortable that they're going to be able to kind of move forward and have it up and going and ready. The second half may not be fully complete, but I did follow up too on the voluntary alternate for the casework from Klausner. That casework manufacturer did Westwood's science labs about 10 years ago, and they're still in good shape. I chatted with Brian DeAugustine over there, and those labs are in good shape. So that was kind of a good litmus test to make sure that that product is holding up, and that was, I think it was 10 to 12 years ago, so those are in good shape. And that, fingers crossed, that manufacturer did say that if we're looking at award, I think their lead time on them right now isn't that bad. So it'd actually be more like a mid-June where we could have that on site. So there is potential that at a minimum, we could have all the loud work done before school starts. So we're not having to have them in after hours, jackhammering and doing the floor trenching and whatnot. So they'd be actually close. There's potential where it would be close that it would be completely done, but there'd be more than likely a few weeks into the beginning of the school session to have the completion of the second half of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Looks like that's all the questions we have for you. Mr. Hongestow, appreciate you coming.
No problem. Any other questions on the windows at all? It was one of those where I think it made sense as we're ripping out the rest of it. If it were going to look like a checkerboard on the wall and there was a whole string of windows along that whole, like a stretch where there's going to be half of them done, half of them not, I'd probably second guess it. But this one, with that science lab wing, it's that entire facade would get new windows, so.
Makes sense.
Okay, so for the next part of the superintendent report, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Lampman for the budget amendment.
Sorry. I may This way I can see everybody. Makes it a little easier for me. I hope you don't mind that I took the podium. Well, let me just get myself situated really quick. So, let's talk budget. It's an exciting topic. I'm here to present the March 18, 2024 budget amendment, the second budget amendment for the year. As you may recall, we adopted a budget amendment back in December. At that time, we looked at everything that was non-grant, non-salary related. Grants have sort of been the bane of our existence lately. It's we're right now managing about 30 grants totaling roughly $4.5 million. They all have their unique deadlines and requirements. So, and the state keeps changing the timelines on us. So we've been trying to hit a moving target here, and that's been a challenge. This budget amendment basically focuses in right now on an update to our salaries and benefits and our staffing plan in accordance with the grants that we currently have. So we're going to focus in on really the general fund and the food service fund, as they contain the bulk of the salaries and benefits and the grants. So the general fund is comprised of our general operations, our grant fund, Kaufman Planetarium, Father Marquette, contingency fund, athletics. There's a lot that gets rolled into our general fund. So, starting with general fund revenues, as I was going through the budget amendment, I know I did say I was targeting grants, but if I saw something that, needed to be tweaked a little bit, I would tweak it, such as local revenue. There was about a $15,000 adjustment made to Kaufman Auditorium contributions. State revenue, we're looking at a proposed increase of $888,315 in state revenue, largely due to state grants that we've received since the inception of the the original budget. Federal revenues, we're looking at an increase of $161,499, again due to grant activity. So looking at state grants, we did have, as Mr. Sedgwick said, a 97 per pupil safety grant. Originally, we were targeting 3 things with that grant. We were targeting the transportation radio system, we were targeting the PA system, we were targeting cameras as well, I believe, out of that. So the $71,000 that you see there currently is the purchase order that we had to submit for the transportation system amongst some other things, but it's largely the transportation system. Now that we have some hard numbers on the PA system, we're gonna go back and we'll kind of reevaluate our grant plan. We've been trying to coalesce coming into year end, how much we're gonna spend this year versus next year. And again, we're still trying to hit a bit of a moving target here. The other safety grant is 31AA. That covers mental health, 50% mental health, 50% safety. Originally, we had applied for $700,000 for that. It was based on a per pupil allocation. We had anticipated that being finalized by January, and here we are mid-March. It still is not finalized, and we've recently been informed that they'd like to give us another $100,000, bring that up to $800,000 for mental health and safety. But that's going to require the submission of a new budget. So we'll be working on that this week. It's due Wednesday. So we're still late in the game in the fiscal year. We're still not working with hard numbers. For instance, title at the December meeting, our Title I, Title II, Title IV, generally that is established by October each year. We had been promised it would be January. We didn't get our final allocations until the end of February. So it's just been a challenge in trying to come up with a real solid plan for the year. That being said, I think we're still in good shape. We'll refocus for year end, but an MDE is facing the same challenge everybody else is. They're short-staffed. They have a hard time finding people. They have new staff figuring things out. It's just that's where we are in the world today. So it's top down. And I'm sorry, I'm probably getting a little off topic and rambling, so feel free to stop me at any point. Some of the other grants that we have, we saw an increase to our Voc Ed. The most significant one I would say is our 31A at risk. We originally had a budget of $765,000, and they've allocated $1.4 million to our district for at-risk funding. So we're looking to spend a little over $1.2 million this year, and we'll carry over the remainder to next year. That's a significant increase to our at-risk funding, though. Again, it's a big shift in where we're allocating people within our staffing plan. And so the numbers just keep changing, the people keep moving around, and it's a challenge, but it's also a fun challenge. Moving on, looking at our federal grants, most significantly I would say is ESSER 3. We were really trying to have our ESSER funding spent down by the end of the last fiscal year. We didn't fully achieve that goal, but we did have some carryover. We're going to try to exhaust this year. So ESSER 3 wasn't planned as part of this year originally. We didn't meet the goal we had of fully spending it down last year. So looking at general fund revenues overall, we're looking at an increase in our proposed budget from $45,801,000 at the December amendment to $46,866,000 for the March amendment based off the grant changes that we've talked about. And that's about a little over $1 million increase to general fund revenues. And this just shows you kind of a graph comparison of where we were in December graphically to where we are today. Everything's mostly flat except you see that the state revenue took a bit of an increase. Looking at the expenditure side, again, this is largely focused in on salaries and benefits and where those staff members are allocated in our grant plan. But we did have some changes with purchase services and capital outlay as well. So looking at our general fund expenses, with the December amendment, we were at $44,981,000. Again, in December, we hadn't looked at salaries and wages. That was the carryover from our original plan that was established back in June of '23, based off those estimates. With this current budget amendment, we're proposing overall expenses of $44,602,000. So that's a decrease of $378,699 overall. And I apologize because you probably see some handwritten scribbled notes on the right-hand side of your page. I realized I ran my copy through the copier for all of you, so you can just ignore my scribbles. Again, the most significant change you're going to see here is in the salaries line item. We went through, we pulled in our actual salaries for the year, and historically the vacant positions have been added back into the budget due to time constraints. The vacancies have not been added back in, so it's probably a bit more of a significant difference than had the vacant positions been added back in. But this far into the fiscal year, we're mid-March, coming into June shortly. It's probably not a bad idea to see what that number actually is. So that was the decision that was made. So again, we're looking at an overall reduction in general fund expenses of about $378,000. Looking at this graphically again, you can see everything's pretty flat, slight reduction under salaries and benefits overall. So looking at the big picture, we started the year with an overall fund balance of $15,645,000. We're proposing revenues of $46,866,000, expenses of $44,602,000, resulting in a net income of $2,263,000. Some of that is going to be set aside for our contingency fund, $4.4 million, and then we have other assigned money for MTSS, future school bus purchases, things of that nature that we've left intact. So this results in an unassigned fund balance of $11,077,224, an overall fund balance of $17,908,000. Moving on to the food service fund. So the bulk of this really happened in the general fund. But looking at, did I go too far? Let's see. There we go. I think I skipped one. So looking at the food service fund, back in December, we had total revenues of $1.7 million. We're proposing revenues of $1.8 million. That's an increase of $85,322. And that difference is a federal award. It was a supply chain grant that we received. So again, this was really targeting in on salaries and grants. Looking at the expenditure side of the equation, we were at $1,825,000 back in December. Currently, we're proposing overall food service expenditures of $1,843,000, resulting in an increase of $18,396. Again, you can see the reduction of salaries, $27,866. Part of that is we've had long-term vacant positions within food service that didn't get pulled back into the budget. So we're actually seeing that, that difference play out. Looking at the big picture, we started the year in food service with a fund balance of $717,000. We're proposing revenues of $1,823,000, expenses of $1,843,000, resulting in a net loss of $20,722 and an ending fund balance of $697,202. And I should add, this does factor in the purchase of the food service truck that the board recently approved as well, which at the time of the purchase, I did mention that there'd be a necessary budget amendment for that portion that wasn't already allocated in the budget. So that isn't impacted here. Looking at the other funds, Fund 32, Fund 41, Fund 42, which is our debt service, our capital projects fund, and our sinking fund. These are not part of our salaries and benefits plan, not part of our grants plan, so these currently remain untouched. We had just gone through them in December. There hasn't been a whole lot of activity in these funds since that time. So right now, I'll just go through these really quick. We're not proposing any changes. So the debt fund would remain with a projected ending fund balance of $238,000. Capital projects fund would still have a proposed projected ending fund balance of $4,375,000. And sinking fund has a projected ending fund balance of $1,081,000. And as we come closer to year end, especially with sinking fund, you know, we're going to have to figure out what the timeline is going to be on some of our projects, how much is we're going to pick up in June prior to year end, and then how much is going to actually happen over the summer in July, August, September. So as we come into year end, we'll start making those determinations, and we'll factor those into the final budget amendment. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Sarka, support by Mr. Hewitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Board committee reports, Committee of the Whole, meeting of March 4th, 2024. I don't know, what did we talk about 2 weeks ago? Mr. Cedric did a very nice presentation on some of the projects going on in the district, which also included talk about some upgrades to our playgrounds at the different elementaries. And we also talked about the deadline for submissions for the logo is this Friday, the 22nd. Was there anything else that we talked about? No? Okay. All right. Student School Board Representatives report.
Recently we've just been getting ready for next year's student council election and just figuring out like how to get more people to do it and what they should have to do to be able to be on student council. And that's all we've been doing recently.
And how did the twerk go?
Twerp was good. It was fun. It was disco theme.
Oh, fun. Thank you. Comments from the public? I don't believe we have any. New business. Consider awarding the MAPS PA Systems project to JP Electric as recommended. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to award the grant for the PA system to JP Electric.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Zedunick, support by Mr. Sarka. Any comments?
I don't have to be super technical, it should not be called a grant or rather than the contract price, but I don't know if that matters or not, but
Or does it say grant?
I think the motion included that by accident.
Oh, okay. So should we amend the motion or?
Depends on what everybody else thinks. I think it's probably gonna be fine,
Okay.
just mentioned it.
Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Consider awarding the MAPS MSHS Science Labs project to Klossner Construction and Sales as recommended. I would entertain a motion.
It's a mouthful. I will make a motion to consider awarding the MAPS MSHS Science Labs project to Klossner Construction and Sales as recommended.
Support. Okay, motion made by Mrs. Klipp, support by Ms. Ray. Any further comments?
Just super excited that we're finally getting these science labs redone. Way overdue.
Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consider amendment to the 2023-2024 budget.
I'll make a motion to adopt the revised amendment to the 2023-24 budget.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Hewitt, support by Mr. Sarka. Any further comments? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Oh, wow. We're already to board member comments. All right, board member comments. Start with Mrs. Maddox-Smith.
Just want to thank everybody for their hard work. Jim, that was an incredible breakdown of the budget. Thank you for doing all that hard work for us and making it understandable. And we appreciate that. Really looking forward to the science labs. Can't wait to see what we get at the end of that.
Mr. Zedunick.
I just appreciate our speaker coming to the meeting to explain the projects. Appreciate all the work at the front office, getting everything ready for us tonight. Thank you.
Mrs. Klipp.
No further comment.
Ms. Ray.
Me neither. All good, thanks.
Mr. Hewitt.
Nope, nothing further, thanks.
Mr. Sarka.
Sometimes mundane and boring is just the most wonderful thing in the world. I'll leave it at that.
Board president comments. Just echoing what the rest of my fellow board members said, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for Mr. Lampman and your staff for putting together the report. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the science lab's gonna be like. I think it'll be fun. Announcements and other meetings. March 25th, April through April 1st, 2024, spring break, no school. April 3rd, 2024, MSHS Academic Awards and National Honor Society induction in the gym at 6:30. April 5th, 2024, end of the third quarter. April 8th, Committee of the Whole meeting here in the library at 5:30. April 22nd, board meeting here in the library at 5:30. And then we will be recessing to closed session under section 8C of OMA to discuss negotiations, and under 8H of OMA for attorney-client privilege. We need a roll call?
You would entertain a motion.
Oh, entertain a motion for that.
I would make a motion to go into closed session.
Support.
Good.
Keep it short.
Motion made by Mr. Sarka, support by Mr. Hewitt.
And then we will do a roll call. Len
Okay.
Sarka,
Yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Jennifer Clip,
Yes.
Jennifer Ray,
Yes.
Cheryl Maddox Smith,
Yes.
Jason Zadunik,
Yes.
Kristen Kembenzi.
Yes.
Motion carries, recess at.
Okay, yes.
In our fancy